Our next speaker is actually my boss. This is Dr. Mark Talamini, who's chairman at Stony Brook. He's going to be talking to us on how you negotiate, Foundation for Effective Negotiations.
Good morning, and thanks for the chance to share this topic. This is not a surgical topic, I'll tell you from the beginning. Now, I'm going to start with a video clip, and I want you to watch this and think about what you can learn about negotiations from this clip, because I'm going to ask you, even though it's a big room, I'm going to ask some of you to tell me what you see about negotiations in this clip, assuming we can get it to go.
That I cannot do.
I'll give you anything you ask.
We've known each other many years, but this is the first time you ever came to me for counsel for help. I can't remember the last time that you invited me to your house for a cup of coffee. Even though my wife is godmother to your only child. But let's be frank, you never wanted my friendship. And you were afraid to be in my debt.
I didn't want to get into trouble.
I understand. You found paradise in America. Had a good trade, made a good living. Police protected you, and there were courts of law. You didn't need a friend like me. But now you come to me and you say, Don Corleone, give me justice. But you don't ask with respect. You don't offer friendship. You don't even think to call me Godfather. Instead, you come into my house and say my daughter's to be married, and you ask me for the murder, money.
I ask you for justice.
That is not justice. Your daughter is still alive.
Let him suffer then. She suffers. How much shall I pay you?
What have I ever done to make you treat me so disrespectfully? If you'd come to me in friendship, then the scum that ruined your daughter would be suffering this very day. And if by chance an honest man like yourself should make enemies, then he would become my enemies. And then they would fear you.
Be my friend. Godfather.
Good. Someday, and that day may never come, I'll call upon you to do a service. But until that day, accept this justice as a gift on my daughter's wedding day.
Okay, so with the last name Talamini and now living on Long Island, virtually everything that you need to know about negotiations is in that clip. So somebody tell me something that you see, a principle about negotiating in that clip. Just shout it out and I'll repeat it. It's a give and take. So this is a positional negotiation, right? They each start at a position and they move away from that position. I think you all know this movie, but the deal is in the Sicilian culture, anything that's asked of you on your daughter's wedding day, you will do. So this guy knew that the Godfather was supposed to say yes to anything he answered. So his starting position was, I want these guys dead. Don Corleone's starting position was quite a bit different. So that's exactly right, positional negotiation. What else do you see? Humility. So it's interesting. You think that in the mob culture, this is going to be a win-lose type of negotiation, but it's actually a win-win type of negotiation. And what you see here is exactly that. Don Corleone starts out with the strongest position, But the other guy does have some strength by virtue of the cultural thing that he knows. But you're exactly right. Over time, their relative strength and position had to be sorted out. What else do you see? Respect. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going the wrong direction here. So here's a couple of other things that you see here. You see the opening position versus the real position. The tremendous power of nonverbal communication. You notice that Corleone was sitting down for the first portion of that negotiation. When he got serious, he stood up. So the importance of body language in negotiating, you cannot underestimate that. You also can't underestimate the power of silence, the amount of gaps that you saw in that discussion. That's very, very powerful. It's very important to know what the other party's position is as well. You saw that Don Corleone knew an awful lot about this guy and what was going on. The guy knew about Corleone as well. So knowing what your opponent or your negotiating partner's positions are is very important. One more clip here.
I'm just saying, telling the truth is not in the cards right now. I thought you'd be excited to have an acting job.
If it's an acting job, we should get paid.
Yeah, you're gonna get paid in experience.
I want to actually get paid.
All right, what do you want?
$600 for the day, plus overtime if we go over 8 hours. I'll do my own hair and makeup, and I want you to pay for the 6-week intensive acting camp that my mom can't afford.
$50 for the day and a 2-week acting class at the YMCA nearest you.
$500 and a 4-week acting class.
$300 and a 3-week class.
Done.
I would have done it for $500.
I would have done it for the experience.
So again, a great example of negotiation. You could see the two parties had their own interests. At first, they weren't clearly communicating what each of their interests were. They started at a position, they worked quickly towards an agreement, and then what you saw is they both expressed what's called in the negotiating world the BATNA, the best alternative to a negotiating agreement, and it actually turned out to be quite different for the two of them. But when you enter a negotiation with somebody, you need to have in your head, what's the alternative if this negotiation completely fails? And you saw some of that there. Knowledge, intelligence, preparation is absolutely critical. The more important the negotiation, the more time you should spend knowing as much as you can possibly know, both about your position and the other person's position. A great example of this in our world currently is negotiating with academic medical centers because they are the ones with money. Larry Kaiser wrote this article back in 2005. This was in follow-up to work he did as the chair of surgery at University of Pennsylvania. And it's obvious that what he had done is he had gotten a hold of the hospital numbers, and he had learned, he couldn't actually put the dollar numbers in here, but what he did was to figure out how much contribution each surgical book of business brought to the bottom line. So when he went to sit down and negotiate with that hospital CEO, he could say exactly what that number is. That is incredibly important to have that information when you enter a negotiation like that. So you want as much data as you possibly can get. A couple of tricks. There's a thing called the bogey that negotiators talk about. That's when in a negotiation you simply say, look, it's all I got. I can't do any more. Now, whether it's ethical to say that when it may not necessarily be true is something that you would have to sort out. But that's a very powerful negotiating strategy to say, look, that's all I've got. It takes the negotiation in a new direction. Well, okay, if that's all of you got, what else can I do for you besides the money that you need or the position that you need? Walking away is perhaps the most powerful tool you can use in a negotiation, but you've got to be very careful with that strategy. Before you consider walking away, make sure you're ready to accept the consequences. I hear stories over and over again of faculty members who get upset about a certain thing going on in their department or in their situation. They sit down with their boss and they say, well, look, if you don't give that to me, I'm just going to leave. You never want to say that unless you are completely ready to leave, i.e. you've already got another job. Because they may just say, great, see you later. That may be exactly the opportunity they're looking for. So, never consider walking away unless you're ready to take the consequences. If you are ready, it's a very, very powerful tactic. The power of the written word. This is something that we don't think about in the electronic age. When things are written down, human beings cannot help but to consider that authoritative. It doesn't matter if it is authoritative. If it's black and white on a piece of paper, the person you're negotiating with will consider it authoritative. So if you're going into an important negotiation, my advice to you is always have something written down, ready to hand to that other person as you're negotiating positions. That will bring a level of power that most people vastly underestimate. Now, the person you're negotiating with may use the same trick. They may hand you a piece of paper. When they do that, never forget that you are being influenced in the same way. Just because it's written down on paper doesn't mean it can't be negotiated further. So this can play in both directions. You also have to calculate the nature of your relationship. This is the difference between buying a new car, where you don't care if you offend that salesman and you're never going to see him again, and offending your chairman or your dean, who you're going to have to work for every day. So you have to consider the nature of your relationship and how long-term that relationship is. Finally, as you saw in that first video clip, the incredible power of silence should not be underestimated. Human beings have a natural desire and drive to fill empty space with words. When you're at a tough spot in a negotiation, the most powerful thing you can do is to say nothing. And in many instances, your opponent or your negotiating partner will talk themselves right into your position if you just simply let them do it. Use your nonverbal communication and don't say a word. Aurora, don't try that. So that's very, very powerful, and most people don't know or use that trick. So I think my time is up. I will leave you with two quotes. The best move you can make in a negotiation is to think of an incentive that the other person has not even thought of yet, and then meet it. That's a very creative way to negotiate. And then finally, everything is negotiable. Whether or not the negotiation is easy is another thing. So thank you very much for your time.